Hello, welcome back to 3D Creations. This week we will be making this. It is a lovely scene of a treasure chest. Now the treasure chest has a couple of fine detail pieces that might trip some of you up. So we're going to take a look at those and we're going to hop right into it. Now in this tutorial I'm going to be moving a little bit faster than the last one. So if you ever get confused, feel free to rewind the video, watch it again, or go back to last week's video where we went through all of the basics, or even run through the tutorial of TinkerCad once again. It's never a bad idea to have a refresher. So with that out of the way, let's dive into a new composition, and we're going to start with our main focal piece of the treasure chest. Now we can start off, as many projects do, with a simple box. Stretch it out to roughly treasure chest dimensions. Whatever your gut says, that's probably right. Now, normally we would have to grab a cylinder and chop it in half, but there is this round roof option, which is already done for us. Let's rotate that 90 degrees. We're going to match that up to the same size as the main box. And if we see flickering like that, that means we have it exactly the right size. And there we go. And that, we can make both of those brown. That is the main shape that we're going to be going for. Nice and basic, nothing too complex. Now, we need to grab a couple more boxes, and because we did not change the Y direction of our treasure chest to start with, it is still going to be the exact same as our starting box. Let's expand that out a little bit. I did that on both sides, so you can do that by holding Alt. And we're going to shrink it down, move it over. Remember, hold Shift if you want to move in only one direction. And then I'm going to copy and paste that. Move it on over. The look I'm going for here is more of like supporting iron or like brass bands going around the whole thing. Sometimes you sort of see that in treasure chests sometimes. All right. I'm just copy and pasting and making those. So now we have all of those. Since there isn't really, yeah, we'll go for a silvery iron look this time, instead of the brass that I did over here. And honestly, that is most of our treasure chest completed. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to make the top half a group and the bottom half a group, and we can go in and select multicolored on those to bring our colors back. Fairly simple so far, just copy, pasting, resizing, and keeping up with your colors and your grouping. Staying organized while you work is going to save you a lot of trouble. Alright, so now we can start working on the inside, which is where some of the really troublesome stuff comes in. So let's open it up to a little bit more open than 45. Now I'm going to shove that back and match it up the best we can. There's some overlapping here, but that's alright because we're assuming that that is our hinge. You know what? While we're talking about that, why don't we grab a couple cylinders and make it look like those are actually hinges. Just some little pegs. This is all you need. It's really helpful to think of these small details as you work. Never know when someone will come along and be like, hey, why is this not here? And maybe they're right. Alright, so this isn't lining up, so what we can do So we can just make 2 of these. Alright, I'm going to ungroup this lower part just for now so that I can get access to this. And I'm going to grab that Align tool and pair that up right in the middle. Great. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. Click on that, line that up, and we can change these over. Ooh, and let's add a bevel, just so it looks more riveted. So why don't we add a bevel into this, and it just sort of rounds it out, makes it look like it's been hammered, a little less perfect. Nothing in the real world is absolutely perfect. So you can just add a bevel there, and make sure you up your segment count. That way it looks more rounded. There we go. Now we could keep these orange if we wanted to get a sort of brass look, but let's just make it a slightly darker gray. That doesn't look too bad. Now we can go in and make that part of the bottom bit. Make sure you grab the colors back. Cool, now we have hinges. Alright, now in here we have just a flat plane, and that doesn't look like much. So what we want to do, we want to grab holes to punch into it, because holes also act as emptying out the middle bit. So you could raise that up, but let's raise the whole thing up. That way we still have a bottom. Alright, so now we tell it to group with our entire group. So you group with a group, and it's sort of, since it's object on object, it can punch a hole in multiple things at a time. So now that we have the inside, why don't we do the same thing. So because we have this at a sort of wonky angle, I'm going to copy and paste the whole thing. We're going to edit this group, get rid of those bands, and then scale down this whole thing, and then make it a hole. And with a group, now we have an empty top part. Sweet! Alright, this is looking more and more like a treasure chest now. Now that we have a treasure chest, we need some gold. Now that can be done by, I'm just going to grab a box and just a little bit wider, because we can clip through and it's no big deal, as long as it doesn't clip out the outside. And then we can change that to be our gold color. It's a little bit much. Let's make it a little bit darker. There we go. Now that's just a flat plane. Yep. So always remember, try to keep Z-fighting that flickering stuff to a minimum if you can. Alright, so now it looks like there's stuff in our treasure chest, but it's just flat, and that's not very dynamic. So what I like to do is grab one of these stars, and we can go in here, and points, we just max that out, and we can sort of flatten it, pull those inner points out. That will allow us to get a sort of piled up look. Now we head in here, we can shove in, pull that up, sort of mix the two if it seems like it's floating, but I think we're okay there. It's a little tall in my opinion. And then, if you just match the color, it looks like we've got some gold piling up in there. And more or less, that is our treasure chest. If you wanted to add more details, you absolutely could, like handles along the sides or any other small details is always a good idea. But in the meantime, I'm just going to select everything, make it a group so that we don't lose it, and we can keep it locked in place. If we go back to our example, we've got the treasure chest, we've got sand, and a shovel just to sort of complete the scene. Now, the shovel, what we can do for that, so if we grab one of these paraboloids, we can grab that, and then the trick is we can take these steps, drop that all the way down, not to 3, we want to drop it to 4, and then we can squish it. And by doing that, that looks like a shovel. Flip that around, grab a cylinder, and make that a fair size smaller. Put it in the middle, and we can start to assemble our handle. And same thing here, I like to add a bevel with a whole bunch of segments, just because nothing in the world is absolutely perfect. So it's always a good idea to add any sort of detail that you can find. There we go, make sure the cylinder isn't sticking out too much. And that seems a little wide to me, so let's grab that. Hold Alt, remember, to modify it and keep it the center point. That's a little short, make that taller. And then we can adjust the color, make that more wood. And I like that color as is. And then we can take both of those, make that a group. Remember about the colors. Now, we have a shovel and we have a treasure chest. And then what we can do is, here's an advanced technique that you guys can play with, is we can move away from these basic shapes. These basic shapes will get a lot done. But if you're looking for something more complex, feel free to jump into any of these other categories. I'm going to jump to all and go all the way to the last page and grab some terrain. Now this terrain is just randomly generated little height maps. Oops. I'm going to make that a little taller. Make it some sand color. Now, one thing that really helps sell realism is just messing stuff up ever so slightly, because nothing is ever perfectly up and down. Nothing is ever absolutely flush with each other, so just sort of mess it up. And then we have a wonderful scene of a treasure chest on a beach with a shovel. And if you followed along, you should have this as well. Great! Thank you for joining us, and hope you have a good week.